All right, today we're going to unpack a process that's a huge deal for so many people, but it's often wrapped up in a lot of confusion and, let's be honest, a lot of fear. We're talking about what happens when you can't pay your mortgage. We're going to follow this unspoken journey from a single missed payment all the way to some pretty surprising final outcomes.
So let's just start with the big question right up front. What actually happens when a mortgage payment gets missed? I mean, beyond just getting a late fee in the mail. As you're about to see, it kicks off a very specific, legally defined process.
The best way to think about it is like this. That first missed payment is the first domino to fall, and once it's tipped over, it sets off a whole chain reaction of notices, fees, and some really tough decisions that can feel completely overwhelming. So let's map out that entire chain, step by step. Okay, let's start with that first domino, the trigger. The official word for when you miss a payment and break the terms of your loan is default. But what on earth does that mean in the real world? So the legal definition is pretty dry, right? A breach or non-performance. But for 99% of people, it means one simple thing. You missed a payment. That's it. That is the most common trigger for everything that follows. And the moment you're in default, things start happening fast. Three things almost immediately. First, fees start piling on. We're talking inspection fees, legal costs, you name it. Second, your credit score takes a massive hit, and that can follow you around for years. And third, the official clock on the foreclosure process starts ticking. But, and this is super important, foreclosure is not a done deal at this point. There's a really critical window of time where you, the homeowner, have options. You can work with the lender to find a different way forward. This is a crucial crossroads in the whole journey. You're literally standing at a fork in the road. Yeah, one path leads toward foreclosure, but there are several others that can lead to a resolution, a solution that might keep you in your home or, at the very least, let you exit the situation a bit more gracefully. Lenders basically have three main tools in their toolkit to help out. If you're dealing with a short-term problem, like you lost your job but you know you'll get a new one soon, forbearance can hit the pause button on your payments. If the problem's more long-term, they might recast the loan to lower your payments for good. And if you just can't afford the house anymore, a deed in lieu lets you hand the keys back to the lender, which helps you avoid having a formal foreclosure on your record. You know, to really get a feel for the kinds of help that are out there, it's actually helpful to take a quick look back in time, specifically at some of the huge government programs that came out after the 2008 financial crisis. Now, they've expired, but the ideas behind them are still very much in play today. For instance, you had the HAMP program, which was all about getting your monthly payment down to a manageable slice of your income. Then there was HAFA, which basically created a graceful exit for people who just couldn't stay in their homes. These programs essentially wrote the playbook for all the creative ways lenders can help people today. But what happens if none of those alternatives work out? Well, then you arrive at what you could call the point of no return, the formal foreclosure process. This is when the lender starts the legal process to take ownership of the property. So what does that timeline look like? Well, late fees usually pop up after about 2 weeks. At the 30-day mark, you're officially in default. But lenders usually wait until a homeowner is anywhere from 3 to 6 months behind before they really kick off the formal foreclosure proceedings. That big gap, that's the crossroads period we were just talking about. Now, here's a really key detail. Not all foreclosures are the same. The biggest difference between states is whether or not a court has to get involved. A judicial foreclosure is a full-on lawsuit, but in a lot of states, there's a power of sale clause in the mortgage that lets the lender skip the courthouse and move much faster. There's even a really rare one called strict foreclosure, where a court just hands the property over, no auction at all. This can all sound a bit abstract, so let's make it real. We're going to zoom in on one specific process, the non-judicial or power of sale foreclosure process down in Texas. It's a very clear, very regimented procedure. In Texas, the foreclosure clock is incredibly precise. First, the borrower gets a notice to cure, which gives them at least 20 days to catch up on payments. If they can't, then a notice of sale is posted and mailed out, at least 21 days before the auction. And get this, that auction is always held on the first Tuesday of the month, right there at the county courthouse. It runs like clockwork. So, the auction is looming, the clock is ticking down. It makes you wonder, right? Is there anything, any last-ditch effort to stop the sale? A final chance to save the property? And the answer is yes. This last-minute save is called the equity of redemption. It sounds complicated, but it's pretty simple. It gives the homeowner the right to stop the foreclosure dead in its tracks by paying off the entire loan balance plus all the fees. It's an incredibly powerful right, but you've got to come up with a ton of cash right before the auction. But here's the catch, and it's a big one in states like Texas. The moment that auction is finished, it's over. Done. There is no right to come back a week later and buy the property back. The winning bidder is the new owner, period. That makes that equity of redemption window before the sale so critical. Okay, so what about after? The auction's over, the house is gone. You'd think that's the end of the story. But for the former homeowner, the financial consequences might not be over just yet. This is one of the most common and, frankly, most dangerous misunderstandings out there. A lot of people assume that once the bank takes the house, the debt is settled, you're all square. But what if the price the house gets at auction doesn't cover the full amount you owed? This is where something called a deficiency judgment can come into play. If the house sells for less than what you owed, the lender can actually take you to court to get an order that forces you to pay the difference, the deficiency. The debt can literally follow you even after the house is gone. Now, before you panic, this isn't a universal threat. A lot of states have actually limited or even banned deficiency judgments. FHA loans are exempt from them, and the VA really discourages them. But if you live in a state where it is possible, it's a huge financial risk, and it is absolutely talk to a lawyer time. And just when you thought you were through it all, there's one last potential twist. If a lender forgives some of your mortgage debt, whether it's through a foreclosure or some other deal, the IRS can sometimes look at that forgiven money and treat it as taxable income. Yep, you might even get a form in the mail for it. It's often a final, totally unexpected financial hit. So we've walked through the whole journey, from that first missed payment to the final auction and its fallout. It's a very precise, very legal process. But it brings us to one last thought. When you look past all the legal steps and the dollar figures, what is the true cost of this whole chain reaction for people and for communities?